What's going on, family? It's your brother Lawrence here with another episode of Required Reading. Now we have two which are similar, but they kind of touch on different industries, and another one which I just think is an interesting thing that I kind of missed. Now the first one is actually, by Sister Jiva Lang in the Week magazine, and it says Tenet killed the movies. And so what you kind of talked about is Tenet, and I feel bad about Tenet because Tenet, that's our brother Denzel's son. He was starring in that Chris Nolan film, and this is obviously coming out in the middle of a pandemic. And essentially what she's pointing out was that this was kind of like the last domino. Everyone was kind of riding on, if this does well, maybe the movies can kind of come back in full swing. And on a budget of $400 million, they made $9 million. And so it essentially was just indicating that this is kind of more to come. On top of that, the owners of Regal Cinemas kind of made the decision to close all the cinemas back down. And so we're kind of been in this season where there have been industries that have been hit hard, particularly those which are those experiences where you come in person. And now, if y'all know me, I love the movies. I love to go out to the movies. I would go often, sometimes almost once a week, to enjoy it. But now there's just a real consideration about, there's a real question about the just longevity, the life of many of these companies. Many of them may not even last beyond November, let alone this pandemic. So it was just great that she kind of gave some color, but also rooted it around the movie and how much was banking on it doing well. Most of the releases that everyone's been looking forward to seeing, like from Candyman, I don't know, I'm just doing it off of support, but I'm not gonna be sitting in no theater and just messing up my dreams. But most of these things, I think I would estimate that Q4 2021, though most of them have been pushed to Q3, Q3 spring summer of 2021. So again. I thought it was a really good article because it was short, sweet, right to the point, but kind of gives you a picture of just how real this pandemic is getting and what may actually never be the same afterward, especially with a lot of these theaters, may having to close. Now, the reason why I said that there are two articles that are similar is because there's an article in the Atlantic, "The Risk Universities Can't Take" by Charles Fishman, and this is huge because I think a lot of us have seen, and been hearing about schools, and there's obviously schools in person, the schools, elementary, high school, that we're hearing about the teachers being exposed and just some of the considerations that cities have had around reopening. But universities, what I appreciate about the article, they use the University of Arizona and their kind of their dean, their head, and the president, and the decision-making process that he went through. But what I do appreciate, and I think is important for the read, is that it goes under the hood and how much the finances really drive these universities, and how much many of them, quite frankly, were not necessarily in a position, or were not in the greatest positions at all. I say all that to say I'm still not on the ship that says that this is wise. But when it's actually helpful to when they break down the numbers of just what just even 75% of the enrollment would do to the university, many of these universities wouldn't survive. And so one of the things that I love that Charles Fishman does at the end is just like, what if they didn't have to even worry about this? What if they actually, instead of that funding going to many of those companies which didn't necessarily hold up their bargain and keep their workforce, what if that went to these schools and these universities? Because again, if they didn't have to make that consideration, many of these considerations of even bringing people back on campus wouldn't even been on the table. Now, again, it starts off with an interesting kind of intro, but I actually think just for your own sake, reading it, and so you have a better understanding of the reality. And again, as I said, I'm not on the side of even being aggressive. I think you need to be thoughtful. I think you need to think about all of the situations, but I'm not in that position of making that decision. But I just understand that we're dealing with something that we've never done before. And I think more than likely, we're going to find ourselves down in another lockdown. And so this is just something to kind of keep in the mind, but something to read, because I think it's something you should know. And his last article, this is something that I kind of felt like I missed. Not missed. It was more of it was by Deneen L. Brown in the Washington Post, and this was done actually a couple of weeks ago, and it talked about kind of the origins of Lift Every Voice, and this obviously took place after the NFL. This was the song was sung at the NFL game, which sadly, but not surprisingly, it was booed. But I appreciated, for me, I didn't necessarily know the origin story, that it wasn't necessarily intentional by the Johnson brothers, who, kind of sung it, created it, and then it took on a life of its own. And then it wasn't until Booker T. Washington kind of put that last cosign on it, that things really kind of came to life around the song. And so I think, especially given the origins, Deneen kind of goes into just the conversation around why this song, not only beyond its origins, beyond kind of its almost kind of divine quality, but ultimately the considerations it's had over the years around it replacing the Star Spangled Banner. In the same ways that there have been many songs that have had racist origins, and there's been such a fight about that, I think it's a similar fight happening here. And sadly, though I am always hopeful about redemption and the best, I'm not sure if the country will ever get there, especially if this song is getting booed at an NFL game. But I think for everyone, understanding the origins of this song and the place that it kind of sits is just something that I think is just educational, and it was helpful. I did not know it, and it was just great for me to kind of understand the story and understand just why it's as powerful as it is, but on the song itself and the lyrics being powerful. So again, these are the 3 required readings. Again, Tenet Kills the Movies by our sister Jiva Lang. We have by Charles Fishman, the Risk Universities Cannot Take. Not saying I even agree with that, but again, it gives a picture under the surface of why many universities have pushed the envelope beyond perhaps what's safe and some of the missteps many of them have taken, but ultimately just an outlook of what could have been if perhaps support and financial support was better. And then we have just the origins of kind of Lift Every Voice, in the Washington Post by Deneen L. Brown. I hope you enjoy these 3 readings, and if there's anything that you see, any articles that you see as usual that you would enjoy, or